Imagine you're stuck in a terrible traffic jam. The honking, the glares, the impatience seeping into your every breath. Or imagine you're about to have a tense conversation with your boss. Or worse, you're facing a personal crisis that makes you want to throw in the towel. In those moments, what helps you stay grounded? How do you keep from getting swept away by the chaos of emotions? The answer lies in a philosophy that has been around for over 2,000 years, Stoicism. Stoicism doesn't promise to eliminate adversity, but it does give you a quiet strength, the ability to maintain calm, clarity, and steadfastness, even when the world around you is shaking. This philosophy teaches that you cannot control everything. You cannot command the weather, change other people's moods, or make the world treat you fairly. But you can control yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your choices, and your conduct. And from there, your inner self becomes an impregnable fortress. In this video, I'll explore with you 10 valuable lessons from the Stoics, secrets to keeping your cool in seemingly impossible times. More than just a theory, this is a map for you to get through a crisis, maintain your values, and find peace even in the storm. Let's begin this journey, a journey back to ourselves. Lesson No. 1. The power of acceptance. The journey of moving through suffering with equanimity. In life, we are often taught to fight, to grab, to never give up. But there is another kind of power, quieter, deeper, and equally powerful, and that is acceptance. Not surrender, not giving up, but accepting reality as it is. Marcus Aurelius, a great Roman emperor and one of the most learned Stoic philosophers, left behind in his meditations like nature itself, and the result is always the same. The enlightening line of thinking that if something has happened, it must be part of the natural order of the universe. To go against it is to go against nature itself, and the result is always torment, anger, and insecurity. We can't stop the rain from falling. We can't make someone love us forever. We can't change the past. We can't avoid loss, sickness, death. But we can accept it. To the spirit, acceptance in the Stoic spirit is not a passive state, it is an active act, and adaptive, the act of someone who knows that there are things beyond their power, and instead of expending energy resisting them, they channel that energy into calmness, observation, and adaptation. You are on the rushing river tree to fight the current, paddle in, then exhausted in the storm, or let go of the desire to control everything. Imagine you are a boatman on a fast-flowing river. You can fight the current, paddling in desperation, only to find yourself exhausted in the storm. Or you can let go of the need to control everything and go with the flow. The oars with, skillful and alert, that is when he said, the steering the oars with intelligence, skill, and sobriety. That is the image Marcus Aurelius wanted to convey when he said, "Do not expect the world to conform to your wishes. Let your mind flow with the world." Acceptance doesn't make you weak, it sets you free. Free from anger at things you can't change. Free from feeling betrayed by fate. Free to focus on how you're going to move forward, instead of mourning the path that's closed. In the most difficult times, when loss comes, when plans fall apart, when the world doesn't turn out the way you expected, it's acceptance that saves you from the cycle of suffering. It keeps you grounded, not because you control everything, but because you no longer need to control everything. Stoics were not looking for a perfect life. They were looking for a state of mind that could see life as it is chaotic, changing, imperfect, and still smile. That's the beauty of acceptance. And it's one of the greatest secrets to staying calm under pressure. Lesson No. 2. Master what you really control. In modern life, we are constantly bombarded with feelings of powerlessness. An unexpected email from the boss can ruin our day. A rainstorm in the middle of the day can make us angry, or a careless remark from a loved one can keep us up at night. These are all things that are out of our control, and that's why they have the power to manipulate our emotions if we let them. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said it well: "There are things in life we can control, and there are things we can't. Happiness begins when we make the distinction." He calls it dichotomy of control, the whole foundation of the dichotomy of control. It's the first brick that builds the entire foundation of Stoic philosophy. When you understand that you can't control the world, but you can control how you react to it, you enter a whole new realm, where you become the master of your emotions, not the victim of them. Imagine you are an archer. You can load an arrow, aim and draw the string with pinpoint accuracy, but a sudden gust of wind can throw the arrow off course. You can do everything right, but the outcome is not entirely in your hands. Epictetus says, "Find peace not in the arrow hitting the target, but in the effort you put in." The Stoic is not a cold, resigned person. He is a man of action, but not of attachment. He focuses his energies on what he can control: his thoughts, actions, habits, reactions, and values. He does not wish for the world to be ideal, but trains himself to deal with whatever the world brings. When you let go of the desire to control things that aren't yours, other people's comments, your ex's actions, market fluctuations, the weather, someone's procrastination, you take back an incredibly valuable power, your own, where the serenity, not in the making, to the mind. When you on what you, that's where serenity begins, not in controlling the flow of life, but in being able to direct your mind. When you focus on what you can, influence is calmer and more clear, headed in everything, you will find yourself freer, calmer and more clear-headed in every situation. The first lesson and the most fundamental lesson of wisdom, Stoic philosophy, master what is within, and that is the first lesson and the most fundamental lesson of Stoic philosophy. Master the inner, let go of the outer. Lesson No. 3. Nurturing resilience, when adversity becomes the greatest teacher. None of us can escape adversity. It is an inevitable part of human existence. But each person's response to challenges is very different. Some people fall apart, complain and wallow in bitterness. Some people with bright eyes, straight spines and strong hearts keep going, not because they are not hurt, but because they have learned to be resilient. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, understood the value of endurance. For him, adversity was not the enemy, it was the material for training character, the test that distinguished the drifter from the purposeful. He likened life to a furnace. If you want to be strong, durable, and solid, you must endure the fire. No sword is sharp without being tempered, and no soul is deep without being tested to the core. Stoicism does not teach us to avoid suffering. On the contrary, it invites us to face it with courage and clarity. The Stoic does not ask, "Why did this happen to me?" but rather, "What can I learn from this? How will I be better for this ordeal?" In the Stoic view, adversity is an opportunity, not a chance to mourn, but to discover ourselves. Every hardship is a mirror, reflecting our true character. Are we weak or strong? Are we impulsive or calm? Do we react emotionally or choose rationally? And most importantly, resilience comes not from suppressing emotions, but from understanding them, yet not letting them control them. Stoics know pain, know vulnerability, but they don't give in to their emotions. They keep going, even when their legs are shaky. They keep their heads up, even when their hearts are broken. Look at the trees. They don't shy away from the storms. They stand enduring, adapting, and growing. Their roots are driven deep by the storms, and so are people. We grow in depth, strength, and wisdom by the storms that life brings. Stoicism teaches us something simple but powerful. It's not what happens to you that defines who you are, it's how you react to it. Resilience is something that cannot be given. It can only be learned through every fall, every failure, every time you want to give up but still try to stand up. And the more you learn, the more you discover. Peace of mind is not because life is easy, it is because you are strong enough not to be shaken. Lesson No. 4. Choose your response. When you control yourself, you no longer fear the world. There is that few people realize, but people follow Stoic philosophy. There is a quiet power that few people realize, but which the Stoic philosophers consider the most precious jewel in life, the power to choose how to react. We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can always control how we react. And in this volatile world, it's the ability to control our reactions that makes the difference between someone who panics and someone who stays calm, between someone who is driven by emotion and someone who leads by reason. Epictetus, one of the pillars of Stoic philosophy, once said, "It is not the things themselves that make people miserable, but the way they perceive and react to them." Imagine, you're in the middle of a stressful situation, a harsh criticism, a devastating misunderstanding, or a major loss. Your first reaction might be anger, panic, sadness, but Stoicism invites you to pause, observe your emotions, and choose a response that aligns with your values, not your instincts. The Stoics did not deny emotions. They understood that emotions are natural, but reactions are optional. That means you can choose silence over argument. Choose forgiveness over resentment. Choose the right action instead of reacting hastily. Choose to be calm even when your mind is in turmoil. Because when you are not controlled by circumstances, but control how you react to them, you become the master of your own mind. That is the pinnacle of freedom in the Stoic view. In Stoic philosophy, the four virtues, wisdom, fortitude, justice, and temperance, are not just concepts, but guidelines for how you respond. When someone insults you, you don't have to insult back. When life blames you, you don't have to blame fate. You just have to ask, what response reflects the person I want to become? And the great thing is, every moment in life is an opportunity to practice this. It doesn't have to be a major event. Being stuck in traffic, hearing a negative comment, or facing rejection. They're all tests of how much calm and self-control you've developed. The core question is, do you want to be controlled by the world, or do you want to be in control of how you live in that world? The choice is yours, and it's that choice that will determine how much calm you can maintain even when life gets most chaotic. Lesson No. 5. Practicing mindful presence. The way out of the cycle of anxiety and regret. In the modern world, the human mind is rarely where the feet are. The body may be sitting in a quiet room, but the mind is running to the past, to mistakes made, wounds not yet healed. Or it is racing to the future, to anxiety, calculation, and uncertainty. We are thus cut off from reality, living between memory and imagination, and as a result, we are never truly alive. Seneca, one of the greats of Stoic philosophy, warned about this centuries ago. He called those who do not live fully in the present lost in their own lives. For him, mindfulness, or conscious presence, is not a luxury reserved for Zen masters or those living in the deep woods. It is an urgent duty for each person to stay calm, clear-headed, and connected to life as it is happening. Mindfulness is not a mystical state. It is the simple but not easy act of being here, right now, with full, non-judgmental attention. It can be really listening when someone speaks, instead of listening and thinking about what to say. It can be taking a sip of water, feeling the coolness on your throat, instead of sipping it while scrolling through your phone. For Stoics, mindfulness is not separate from a philosophy of life. It is the philosophy of life. Because if you are not present in the moment, How can you recognize what you can control? How can you accept reality if your mind is somewhere else? Seneca wrote, "We suffer not because of the present, but because of the past that is gone and the future that is not yet here." This quote is a mirror of a painful truth. Most of the anxiety and insecurity we suffer does not come from the present moment, but from our avoidance of it. But when you begin to practice mindfulness, whether through deep breathing, observing your thoughts, or simply taking a quiet walk, you are returning to the roots of peace. The present doesn't have to be perfect to be worth living, it just has to be present. Mindfulness in Stoicism is not just about feeling relaxed. It is a tool for self-control, observing emotions, avoiding impulsive reactions, and transforming anger into reason, fear into courage. When you are truly present, you will begin to notice something magical. Negative emotions come, but they don't have to stay. Someone's thoughtless words don't have to hurt you. Small setbacks don't have to turn into major tragedies. You become the pilot of your boat, not the victim of the emotional waves. And you'll understand why the Stoics valued the present so much, because it's the only thing you truly possess. Lesson No. 6. Living virtuously, the essence of calmness and inner freedom. When things in life get chaotic, when you don't know how to react to challenges, injustices, or subtle temptations, there is one question that Stoic philosophy always reminds you to return to. What is the right thing to do? Not what is easy to do, not what pleases others, but what is right, what reflects a noble soul, a person of moral character, of character. For Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, virtue was not a moral decoration, it was the center of a life worth living, the compass that guided every action, every reaction, and every decision. Without virtue, serenity is just an escape. With virtue, serenity becomes a quiet strength. In Stoic philosophy, there are 4 core virtues that every human being is called to practice every day. Wisdom is the ability to distinguish between what should be done and what should be avoided. It is the clarity of action, not being guided by impulsive emotions or prejudices. Wise people know when to keep quiet and when to speak up. They look far ahead, think deeply, and do not trade personal values for short-term results. Courage. Not the absence of fear, but doing the right thing despite being afraid. It is the inner strength that allows you to face vulnerability, to speak the truth when necessary, to stand up for what is right, even when you are alone. The Stoics did not shy away from pain, they faced it with clear eyes and steady hearts. Justice is how you treat others, not being biased, not being selfish, not acting for your own benefit at the expense of the greater good. In a world full of competition, justice is the virtue of true leaders who dare to do what is right even when it is not convenient. Temperance is moderation, is knowing enough, is keeping yourself from falling into extremes. It protects you from excessive desire, from ostentation, from impulsive decisions. A person with temperance is someone who knows how to control his inner self, not letting himself get caught up in the spiral of more, faster, stronger. These virtues are not ideals to be displayed, they are practical tools to help you live in peace in the midst of real life, where there are failures, hurts, misunderstandings, and temptations. When you choose to live by virtue, you no longer react to emotions or pressures, but rather act with direction, value, and cause. And the wonderful thing is, when you live virtuously, you don't need anyone to recognize you. You know you are on the right path. From then on, your mind becomes steadfast. You are no longer easily shaken by praise or criticism, because you have an inner foundation that no one can take away. Stoicism teaches us that virtue is not just a path to peace, it is peace. Living virtuously is not a luxury, but the foundation for becoming the best version of ourselves every day in the midst of life's challenges. Lesson No. 7. Limiting overindulgence. When less is more. We live in an age where everything is driven by desire. Advertising constantly tells you that you need more money, more stuff, more fame, more experiences. But the more you chase, the more you feel deprived, as if happiness keeps slipping away every time you think you've reached it. Seneca, the famous Stoic philosopher, saw this cycle thousands of years ago. He warned that unlimited desire is the main cause of inner unrest, not because the world is lacking, but because we don't know when enough is enough. Stoicism doesn't tell you to give up everything and live in a cave. It doesn't shun pleasure, but it does ask a crucial question. Are you in control of your desires, or do your desires control you? This is a clear distinction between a free person and a bound person. A free person is someone who is not dragged along by desires like a puppet, but knows when to stop. They understand that there are things that, if pursued too much, will make us lose our peace: the recognition of others, superficial success, unnecessary luxury. Seneca wrote, "The rich man is not he who has much, but he who needs little." It's a simple yet profound truth. Think about it. The fewer things you need to feel fulfilled, the freer you are. You no longer worry about loss. You no longer suffer from comparison, and you no longer feel the pangs of not having achieved something. Thus, the Stoic person practices moderation in his desires, not because he fears a life of luxury, but because he understands that lasting happiness comes from self-control, not from possession. When you learn to simplify your needs, magic happens. You are more easily satisfied. You are less susceptible to outside influences. And you begin to feel the richness that comes from within, a richness that cannot be taken away by anyone, regardless of the times. Limiting your desires is a courageous and intentional act. It requires you to face the void within a void that many people try to fill with material things or fame. But the Stoics don't fill it, they observe it, understand it, and transcend it. And then they discovered something that the hurried world often misses. Peace comes not from having more, but from having less. Lesson No. 8. Understanding the impermanent nature of life. When you stop clinging, you begin to be free. One of the most profound and liberating truths that Stoic philosophy offers us is this: everything is impermanent. Whether you are at the height of fame or at the depths of misery, whether you possess great wealth or just a peaceful moment over a cup of tea, all are temporary. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled the Roman Empire, wrote in his Meditations, "All that you see will soon pass away. Those you struggle to overcome, those you long to hold on to, all will pass like the wind on a lake." It sounds pessimistic, but for the Stoic, impermanence is not a source of fear but a source of peace. Because when you understand that everything changes, including pain, anger, and disappointment, you are no longer attached to it. You know, what comes must also go. It is impermanence that makes every moment precious: a simple meal with a loved one, an afternoon walk with a clear mind, a hug that you think is ordinary but could be your last. When you live with the awareness that nothing lasts forever, you appreciate things more deeply and cling less. And you learn something else important. You don't own anything. The people you love can leave. The opportunities you hold in your hands can disappear. Your health, your wealth, your recognition, they can all vanish overnight. But what you can always keep is how you deal with loss. Stoics don't deny the sadness of loss, but they don't let it break them. They accept that life is a constant flow and they learn to swim in it instead of being swept away. Impermanence also teaches you to let go of false control. You can't make someone love you forever. You can't hold on to a beautiful moment forever. You can't stop death from coming. But you can choose to live each moment to the fullest and train yourself to let go when the time comes. The truth is, Because everything is impermanent, you don't need to be so afraid when life doesn't go your way. The difficult times you're going through will pass. The anger, the jealousy, the feelings of failure, they will all disappear like clouds in the sky. And when you know that, you can maintain composure in even the most chaotic situations. You are no longer bound by the illusion of control. Instead, you are present, appreciative, and let go at the right time in the right way. That is true freedom. And that is the gift that understanding impermanence brings. Lesson No. 9. Never stop learning and growing. Inner growth is the path to lasting peace. There is one thing in the human journey that should never stop growth. For Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, learning and growing yourself is not an optional choice, but a moral obligation. Stoicism sees man not as a fixed entity, but as a being in constant evolution. There is no final destination, there is no absolute destination. There is only a constant journey of improvement day by day, action by action, thought by thought. Epictetus once said, "It is not the circumstances that shape a man, but the way he learns and reacts to them." In that spirit, learning is not just about books. Learning is about observing yourself when you get angry and asking, "What can I do to be calmer?" When you fail, not blaming but asking, "What is the lesson here? What did I miss that needs to be improved?" It is about growth, based on awareness, personal responsibility, and humility. Stoics don't seek to be perfect. They just want to make sure that today's version is better than yesterday's version, and they won't stop there. The peace they seek doesn't come from instant success, but from becoming a more valuable person through each challenge. And the wonderful thing is, the world is always giving us opportunities to learn and grow. A criticism, a failure, a moment of lostness, all are invitations to discover a deeper version of yourself. If you have the courage to face it, every experience becomes a teacher. Stoicism teaches that learning never ends, because self-mastery, serenity, wisdom are not a destination, but a lifelong process. And in that very process you will find deep peace, not because life is easier, but because you have become stronger and wiser for living it. Stoics do not live to accumulate, they live to evolve. Every day is a new step in the journey to becoming a person of integrity, steadfastness and courage in the face of life's storms. Lesson No. 10. The value of gratitude, a cure for inner insecurity. In modern life, where people are constantly moving forward seeking greater success, better relationships, a more perfect life, we often forget the most important thing, being grateful for what we have. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is not he who has much that is rich, but he who appreciates what he has." In Stoicism, gratitude is not a temporary emotion that comes when things are going well. It is a way of life, an inner habit that needs to be practiced every day, especially during the most difficult times. Stoics taught that gratitude is an act of the strong mind. When you give thanks not only for the good, but also for the bad, because you understand that every challenge is an opportunity to grow. Every loss is a lesson in permanence. You have overcome your dependence on circumstances to find inner peace. Gratitude helps you redefine your life. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have that?" you start asking, "What do I have that I don't appreciate?" You realize that the things you take for granted, a deep breath, a warm meal, a sincere friend, a worry-free morning, are all gifts, and when you live in a grateful state, every moment becomes precious, every challenge becomes worth embracing, because you are no longer living as if everything is your right. Gratitude is also the most powerful antidote to jealousy, resentment, and feelings of lack. When you are truly grateful, you stop comparing yourself to others, you come back to yourself, feel enough, feel at peace. Seneca doesn't just advise us to be grateful when good things happen. He teaches us to be grateful even when things are difficult, because it's a way to cultivate inner character. When you say thank you to a painful event, you're declaring to life, I am stronger than this situation. I will learn something from this. Gratitude in Stoicism is not naivety. It is the conscious choice to see life through the eyes of someone who has understood the true nature of life, that nothing is guaranteed, nothing is permanent, and therefore everything we have is worth appreciating. You can start right now. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect. Look around you and ask, if I lost something in my life tomorrow, what would I be most grateful for today? The answer to that question is where peace begins.